Hello guys, and welcome to this very big video that I'm going to be sharing for you guys today. And today we'll be looking over cyclonic furies predictions, which are already up here on the screen. Plus we're going to take a look at sea surface temperatures, the new CFS, the new CAN-SIPs, and then last but not least we're going to be going over some statistics from the 2020 and the 2021 hurricane season, plus my 2022 hurricane season predictions. So with that being said, we are going to be looking here at cyclonic furies, hurricane predictions here. And as you guys know, that the 1991 to 2020 average is 14.4 named storms, 7.2 hurricanes, and 3.2 major hurricanes. The accumulated cyclone energy between those 30-year time frame is about 122.1 ACE here, which is pretty, that's pretty decent. That's pretty decent for a 30-year average. All right, so cyclonic furies forecast for March 2022, which obviously that was last month, but here we go. Cyclonic fury has 15 to 20 named storms, reasonable, pretty decent wide range, but still reasonable. 6 to 9 hurricanes, 3 to 5 major hurricanes, and 130 ACE, which can go either way, 40 more ACE or 40 less ACE. So we're going to technically say that cyclonic fury has between a 90 ACE and a 170 ACE range here. So that is a pretty wide range when it comes to ACE. Obviously, you guys are going to see what my ACE count is for this year too, but it's not as wide as cyclonic furies, but it's pretty decent. It's pretty decent. All right, so now we're going to be taking a look at the sea surface temperatures here. And as you can see, these warmer temperatures are really creeping up here on the shelf waters. Most of these shelf waters now are between 20 and 21 degrees Celsius. So, those teens are now out of the picture. These shelf waters are starting to warm up nicely as we get less and less fronts to come through that are, at least powerful to, the cold punches. I mean, we might get a cold punch here in about a week or so, but I don't foresee the temperatures falling that badly during that cold front that might come through over the course of the next week and a half. As you can see, these 26s are staying firm here in these locations in the Gulf of Mexico, southeastern Gulf of Mexico, and through this loop current here too, around the eastern coast of Florida. We got some 26s. We even got some 26s popping up here near South Carolina, Georgia, part of the Gulf Stream. We got 27s that are dominating the Western Caribbean, and this is going to be the place I'm going to be watching here for a potential May, system. Like I said, me and Mother Hub TV have been pretty, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Me and Weather Hub TV have been saying this for a while, that something in the Caribbean may be, to form from a CAG. So we're going to have to see how that plays out, which I will show on the CAN-SIPs and CFS. We got 26s, Bahamas, Puerto Rico, Eastern, Caribbean. We got some 27s mixing in there as well. Here in the Western MDR, 26s and 27s are popping up. And these, these warm temperatures are starting to creep up north slowly but surely. And I do firmly believe that the MDR is going to be starting to warm up here as we head out through the next couple of weeks, which we will be looking at those sea surface temperatures right now. All right, so here we are. We're looking at the whole of the tropical Atlantic here, and as you can see, these 26s are starting to creep up past the 10 north line now. So we're getting to that time of year where we got more daylight. The angle of the sun is helping naturally warm up these waters slowly but surely. And we're just getting to that point in time where it gets hotter and hotter as well. So it looks like it's slowly getting up there. It's not quickly getting up there, but as we head out through time, I do forecast these temperatures to start rising to the threshold for tropical cyclone development from around the 15 north line, which we'll see if that happens. Now, if you take your attention here to the equatorial Atlantic here, You can see that we got some 28s and 27s here that are dominating the equatorial Atlantic. And this is something we like to call the Atlantic El Nino. And what this does, the Atlantic El Nino, it suppresses the ETSI to the south towards the equator, and that was one of the main factors why October and November weren't really active last year. It was just dead. Besides Wanda, see, because what that does is any tropical wave that disconnects from the ETSI just traveled right into South America, and it didn't even have a chance to go here in the Caribbean or the North or the Western Atlantic here. They all just plowed into land and just didn't have a future whatsoever. But there are some indications that this could be changing to an Atlantic La Nina. So what that would do is it would bring the ETSI north, which if you want the Caribbean to fully take advantage of those ETSI break off systems, you kind of want a cool neutral in that area, because if you get too strong of a Atlantic La Nina, which obviously that's a good thing, right? Then what that will do is that will take the ETSI too far north, and then these systems will have an easier time, going out to sea. Now, that would be good for ace makers, but that's about it. So with that, like I said, I do foresee these waters warming up here in short order. All right, so here are the means, the global sea surface temperature means, and this is pretty much what is above or below the long-term average here. And you can see parts of the Gulf of Mexico here are about 3 degrees above normal. And you can see where these, this loop current is here around the northern Gulf of Mexico here. And, this is responsible for blowing systems up like, Ida last year, right? And I think Laura went over a warm loop current in 2022. And well, not 2022, but you get what I'm saying with the two there. Yeah, so this loop current is still pretty much in play here for any storm that wants to come into this location. So, we're just going to have to see, if and when a storm does, eventually hit that loop current. We'll see how long it takes to, to rapidly intensify before landfall. Which, obviously that's becoming a bigger threat and a bigger problem as we go out through the years. Is these storms are sometimes rapidly intensifying, or explosively intensifying in some cases closer to land, and that's just not something you want to see or deal with when you're living on the shores. You're looking at extreme storm surge from these very terrifying, powerful hurricanes, and we just don't want that. But that seems to be the cold hard reality. Is now we're getting more and more closer to land, rapid intensification and explosive intensification storms. But with that being said, as you see, the Gulf Stream here is definitely really above normal here. We're talking about 2 to 3 degrees below or above average. So the Gulf Stream is, probably going to do its Gulf Stream magic this year too. And then you got the subtropics here, that are pretty warm as well, which I will go over the keys to the game once we get towards the end of this video. It'll be pretty interesting to see, why this warm subtropics is very important. Okay, so now we're here in the Caribbean where it's pretty much neutral. There's some pockets of warmer than normal and then cooler than normal, sea surface temperatures, but most of all, it's mostly just a neutral. It's not neither warm nor cool in most of the Caribbean at this point in time. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the sea surface global means for the whole of the tropical Atlantic, and oh boy, you can see where this MDR region is just really, really cold. Like I said, this is going to have to change in order to get a hyperactive season in ACE. This kind of look will give you probably a hyperactive season in name storms, but as far as ACE goes, with this super cool look here in the Atlantic MDR region, that's not going to do it. But once again, I said this a little bit earlier, I do forecast this to change a little bit as we head closer, or even getting into the first few months of hurricane season, as those trade winds start to calm down a little bit and the sea surface temperatures start to rise, which there are some indications that should be happening here shortly. All right, so here we are. We're taking a look at the Nino 3.4 region, and as you can see, these peaks and valleys, all throughout the three-month period. And then you can see here around late February, we took a massive dip down here into moderate La Nina stage and almost close to negative 1.1 degrees below average, which is pretty massive. But ever since then, we've hiked up a little bit, and then a few small time drops, and then a massive uptick in warmth. And now it looks like we're going back down in the temperature department here in the Enso 3.4 region. So what this will entail is that we're looking at probably a La Nina for the first half of the season at the very least. That's just how I feel about it, because sometimes it takes about 3 or 4 months for the atmosphere to catch up with these numbers because they're rapidly changing. So I expect personally that we're going to be in a La Nina for the first half of the season. That's just how I feel about it. And right now, we've got a value of negative 0.844 on the index. So we're going to have to see how far this goes down between now and June, because that's going to be very, very important as to how the rest of the hurricane season is going to play out. If this continues the dip going into June, then that might mean that the whole season is probably going to be in a La Nina. Because, like I said, 3 or 4 months for the atmosphere to catch up. So we're going to have to see how that all pans out. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the CFS total accumulated precipitation anomalies here. And, I show these a lot, but these have updated since I've did my last video. As it didn't have April starting off, May, starting off here. And as you can see for the month of May, it's the same usual suspect spots that me and Weather Hub has been pointing out. Subtropics is pretty wet, and then the Western Caribbean is kind of wet. This may point out that a CAG may try to set up here in the Caribbean. We're just gonna have to see how that all pans out as we go out through time. All right, so now we're gonna take a look at the month of June. And as you can see, it's a lot drier than most CFS runs, but you still got your typical suspect areas here in the subtropics that could try to spin up a storm or two in the month of June. We can't count anything here in the Gulf of Mexico as well, because that's the Gulf of Mexico is a typical hotspot in the month of June. So we're just gonna have to see how that plays out. July, still looking kind of dry in a lot of places. This run may be bugged. I don't know. But as you can see, southeastern Gulf of Mexico, parts of the subtropics, and you see a little bit of the MDR that are starting to light up with the precipitation here. So, it can go either way. It can either be, active or super dead. We're just going to have to see, how that plays out. And that's another key reason why I only go about 2 months in most of my regular videos. Because, once you get past, May and June, that's when it starts to really get cloudy of what is reasonable. But because we're looking over my predictions here, we're going to look at the whole keys to the game here. So, just bear with me here while we go over this process here. So, we could see a couple of systems here pop up in the month of July. All right, August, yeah, you got a bit of an MDR signal here, but this looks like it could be an out to sea, kind of month. Obviously this can be your typical, pop-up thunderstorms, but this looks like it could be an out to sea track kind of month. South Florida could possibly get on a little something with these precipitation anomalies, but we're gonna have to see how that all pans out. September, it's looking like an MDR signal. You got something probably that might go through the Florida Straits, that kind of thing. September is normally where you get the most storms to form out of any given season. This is the very, very heart of the hurricane season. And after September, that's when it starts to wind down a little bit. So now we're going to take a look at October. And as you can see, it's kind of weird to see this kind of a signal in the MDR in the month of October. Usually you're seeing a ton of signals here in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico regions, but most of this precipitation anomalies are here in the subtropics in the MDR region. So that's a pretty interesting look. That's a pretty interesting look. In the month of November, another more MDR precipitation anomalies. You got some Caribbean precipitation anomalies, Western Atlantic, so on and so forth. This is when the season starts to really just slow down and just simmers down for the rest of the year and until next June when we start the hurricane season anew. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the bulk wind shear here, and this is pretty much when you're looking at these reds and oranges, these are unfavorable wind shear, and when you're looking at these blues and darker colors here, this is your favorable wind shear here. And as I was pointing out here, me and Weather Hotel TV are looking here in this Caribbean. So you not only do you got the precipitation anomalies there, but you also have the low wind shear anomalies there too. So that's a pretty interesting look. Now you don't have where you have the precipitation in the subtropics. You don't really have that look here for anything favorable. So in terms of wind shear, so we're just gonna have to see how that pans out. Month of June, we got tons of favorable wind shear here. MDR favorable wind shear. That's interesting. Favorable shear here in the subtropics and Western Atlantic, and then you got favorable shear here in the Gulf of Mexico. July, pretty obvious, bulk wind shear favorability here in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, and parts of the MDR. And then here we go in August. And this is where it starts to look interesting, because in August, this is when you start to look at the MDR region, and then you can see this whole bulk of just very bad wind shear anomalies here that are just overtaking this part of the MDR region. So this is, like I said, this is partially why I don't go above 2 months when I'm looking at the CFS on regular videos, because of stuff like this. But I'm showing you guys this now to, like I said, show you guys everything that I can. September, you're looking at neutral to unfavorable wind shear here in the MDR. Once again, that's when you see most of the MDR action take place. The only good place that the shear is really going to be here is the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. October, your typical places where you start to see the CAG set up here in the Northwestern Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, that has some favorable wind shear. And then this is where you see tropical waves start to thrive here in the Caribbean, so that has favorable wind shear too. And then November, it looks like to be another favorable wind shear environment for these late November systems. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the CANCIP's total accumulated precipitation anomalies, excuse me. And this is for the month of May here. And as you can see, the CANCIPs is starting to show what the CFS is showing here, as something could get going here in the Northwestern Caribbean or the Southern Gulf of Mexico and head probably right into Florida here. Obviously that can change, but it'll be interesting to see if that actually happens. Or, like I said, this can also be your typical pop-up shower or thunderstorm too. So we're just going to have to see how that works out. June, you got a wet Caribbean and wet Florida here. And then that's about it. July, very wet Gulf of Mexico, Florida, Cuba, places of that nature. Looks like to be a wet summer here in a lot of these places. August, this is a pretty wet, environment here. Obviously, CanSIPs can be known for being bugged. This is why we're taking this all with a grain of salt right now. In September, pretty much the same. October, more of the same. This is looking ridiculous right now. This is exactly why I don't look out more than 2 months unless I absolutely have to. November looking pretty wet, and then the rest is history. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the bulk Windshear here, and this is our final stop until we finally get to my predictions for this year. Yes, it's been about 20 minutes, and typically I try not to make these videos this long, but for a big occasion like this, it has to be done. Gotta show everything that I can. All right, here we go. Month of May looks like it's pretty favorable wind shear here in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, Southwest Atlantic parts. Not July, but June. Still pretty favorable here in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. June, favorable condition wind shears here in the Caribbean, and unfavorable wind shears here in the MDR region. Plus, we got some favorable wind shear here in the subtropics. August, you can see why this is bugged a little bit, because this is typically where we start to see our MDR action. But the favorable wind shear is in the typical places here, besides the MDR. September, more favorable wind shears here around the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico. And we still just can't get this, bad anomaly here out of the MDR region for the month of September. But then once you get to the month of October, that's when the MDR starts to become favorable with the wind shears here, which by then, the Atlantic, wave train is starting to shut down a little bit. So, that's when most of the waves start to form here in the Caribbean. As you can see, the Caribbean does have favorable wind shear as well, plus parts of the subtropics. In November, pretty much everywhere is favorable for the wind shear department of the tropics. All right, so with that being said, we're going to take a look at some statistics from the previous two Atlantic hurricane seasons. 2022 Atlantic hurricane season numbers, we all know how that panned out. We saw the most active hurricane season on record in terms of named storms, which we saw 13 named storms. 14 of those became hurricanes. 7 became major. Now, the hurricanes could be 15 too. I would have to, check again. Majors are 7, and ACE was 180. So that was a pretty decent active, season. And like I said, all right, hear me out on this. 2005 had 28 named storms and the same amount of hurricanes and majors, but they also had a lot more ACE. Interesting, right? We'll go over that here soon. 2021 Atlantic hurricane season numbers. They had 21 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 4 majors, and the ACE for that was about 150. Or not 150, but 145. So here is the key factors for an active season. So probably what we're going to have here for this season is probably having to have La Nina to cool neutral in place, which will then go to our next point, which wind shear should be low in several areas because of that La Nina / cool neutral. That's mostly keeping the low wind shear down between the Caribbean and the Western MDR. And then, you got warmer than normal sea surface temperatures. Those are what is going to have this season be active as a whole. All right, so now we're going to go back to some of the points that I've been talking about. Here's the keys to the hyperactive season in storm counts. We go back up to 2020, right? That's when the subtropics was warm. The subtropics have been warm for a while. The subtropics are warmer than the main development region, and that's what we saw is the subtropics being warm. That sent instability into the MDR region, and that's why it wasn't really that MDR heavy. Yes, we did have a few MDR storms, but most of that was most of the invest and waves that came out were struggling due to instability issues here. So here is the keys to a hyperactive season. ACE. Main development region warmer than the subtropics, and you must have to have the subtropics be cooler than what they are right now. Because once again, even if the subtropics is warm and the MDR region is warm, you're still going to have instability problems. Either way, either one being warm, it's a double-edged sword pretty much. So with that being said, now we're going to take a look at my predictions for the Atlantic hurricane season. Yes, sir, it's that time. So what I'm looking at here is 18 to 22 named storms, hurricanes 8 to 11, major hurricanes 3 to 5, and we're going to have an ACE value between 130 and 160. So we could see above average to a start of a hyperactive season in terms of ACE. Like I said, I do feel like the MDR region is going to warm. We're just going to have to see if the subtropics, warm or cool down a little bit too, to see if we get that hyperactive season in terms of ACE. Now this is the first time I've broken it down into months. So what I'm seeing here is May is 1 to 2 storms, June is 1 to 2 storms, July 2 storms, August 4, September 7, October 3, and November 2. That was a hell of a thing. This is my count for this season, and I've gone nearly 30 minutes now, so I better wrap this up a little bit soon. So, with that being said, get ready for another active season to come. Your best bet is to say that we're heading into a triple dip La Nina. So, just bear in mind that these key factors are going to be important going throughout time. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. Yeah, I know I went a long time with this one. This is a big occasion here. So thank you guys for hanging in with me and watching this video. And with that being said, tomorrow I'll be posting my predictions for Eastern Pacific season 2. So look forward to that. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a nice day.